What's up everybody, back at it with some more Dragonflight Beta content, and this time we're taking a look at the shiny new and oh so improved Enhancement Shaman. Anyways, I'll be going over what's been added, what's been gutted, and my overall thoughts on the new talent trees. Keep in mind this is beta testing, so a lot of things can change, and a lot of this will be my personal opinion. The new or well revamped Enhancement Shaman tree is a smorgasbord of returning abilities that we can now combine in ways that hasn't been possible before. It feels a bit like best of Enhancement Shaman from Wrath to Shadowlands. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. I'm hard pressed to find anything major to dislike about the new Enhancement Shaman. So let's check it out, starting off with some of the cooldowns and their upgrades. Feral Spirit, Witch Doctor's Wolf's Bones, and Elemental Spirits or Alpha Wolf. So Feral Spirit is unchanged but requires you to talent into it, and you can upgrade it with our returning Shadowlands Lego, Witch Doctor's Wolfy Bones. 2-point talent increases your chance to get a stack of Maelstrom weapon by up to 4%, and when you gain a stack you reduce Feral Spirit's cooldown by up to 2 seconds. I'm extremely happy to see this return, so much fun to play with and synergizes so well with the new enhancement tree. These Feral Spirits can be further upgraded with either Elemental Spirits or Alpha Wolf. Elemental Spirits, they get imbued with Fire, Frost or Lightning and you deal 15% more damage with that element. Still super strong if you get the right element on your Wolfies. Alpha Wolf on the other hand, while Feral Spirits are active, Chain and Crash Lightning causes your Wolfies to attack all nearby enemies for X amount of damage every 2 seconds, and this lasts for the next 8 seconds. Yay! Our Wolfies are no longer useless on AoE. You go pups! It just makes all the difference on AoE. It feels a lot better popping Wolfies into Crash or Chain Lightning and see them chomp a bit on everyone rather than just the one lonely target and nibble on their feet. It does however compete with Elemental Spirits. Would have been fun to have both for a really overpowered pack of wolves, but this way at least there's a choice to be made. Full single target fight, well, go Elemental Spirits. Heavy AoE or cleave, depending on tuning, well, go Alpha Wolf. Next out is Ascendance and its upgrades. So first of all, you'll be able to talent into either Ascendance or Deeply Rooted Elements, another legendary. So Ascendance if you want a 3-minute cooldown, or Deeply Rooted Elements, which gives your Storm Strike a 8% chance to activate Ascendance for 6 seconds. These both have their moments where they shine depending on what kind of build you're going for and what type of content or encounter. Regardless of which you choose, these can be upgraded with Static Accumulation and Thorim's Invocation. Static Accumulation, 2-point talent, while Ascendance is active, generate 2 Maelstrom every 1 sec, or up to 2 Maelstrom, turning us into a Maelstrom generating monster, which the new Enhancement Shaman very much likes. Now, due to the fact that this talent will make it so that during Ascendance you'll be global starved, you can further talent into Thorim's Invocation. While Ascendance is active, Wind Strike automatically consumes up to 5 Maelstrom stacks, and fire off either Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning at your enemies, whichever you used last. Now this one, while testing, has been a little buggy for me. Sometimes doesn't work at all, sometimes Ascendance hasn't turned my Storm Strike into wind attacks, so well, it just doesn't work. But when it has worked, and assuming it will once it goes live, it's absolutely insane. On AoE you'll just see that spider web of Chain Lightning constantly spread across the packs. Very satisfying and helps so much with the global cooldown bloat during this cooldown, so you can just focus on smashing Wind Strike. Really fun to play with. I personally find the proc one the most fun, but it's just such a good feeling to pop Storm Strike on a pack of mobs and then BAM! You just start chugging Chain Lightnings left and right. Next out is Primordial Wave, our returning Covenant power. 45-second cooldown, fire off a Primordial Wave, deal a bit of damage and applies Flame Shock. Your next Lightning Bolt will also hit all targets affected by your Flame Shock, and I want to recall it's capped on 6 targets. Now this can be upgraded with Primal Maelstrom and Splintered Elements as well. Primal Maelstrom, you generate 5 stacks of Maelstrom, and Splintered Elements, each additional Lightning Bolt generated by Primordial Wave gives you 10% haste for 12 seconds. Now fully talented on AoE, this can become a rather bursty cooldown if set up properly. Not only can you fire off a 10 stacked Lightning Bolt with 150% extra damage on multiple targets for some insane burst, and you follow that up with a huge chunk of haste which will further feed your AoE spam. Now on top of this, the talent Primal Maelstrom that gives us 5 Maelstrom when we use Wave allows us to instantly automatically fire off a lightning bolt following it, even if we start with 0 maelstrom, so the only setup is, does the target have flame shock? If yes, do damn. Now for the rest of the tree, it's very well thought out, and the choices you get to make are, do I want more single target approach, more AoE? Do I want my build to center around more lava lashes, storm strike effects, wind fury, etc, etc? Or do I want a mixed bag of everything? Our biggest concern we have currently with this tree is how to fit it into our rotation, because you can pretty much get whatever you want, but you'll have too many buttons competing for each other in the end. So building around certain abilities or content type will most likely be the way to go. Even if you have a million abilities, there's only so many globals you can do. So for example, going down the left side of the tree, you'll find more wind fury and stormbringer oriented talents, like forceful, unruly, and doom winds. Now forceful winds causes each successive wind fury within 15 seconds to increase the damage of wind fury attacks by 45%, and it stacks up to 5 times within that 15-second window. And unruly winds, wind fury has a 100% chance to trigger a third attack. And doom wind, which has been reworked a bit, 1 minute cooldown, you strike your target dealing a bit of damage and increases your chance to get a wind fury proc by 75% and wind fury damage by 25% for 8 seconds. Now these 3 talents alone are pretty easy to accommodate into any build, which is pretty nice as it'll fuel our maelstrom spam even further, and it gives us a lot of passive damage for low investment. Plus it gives us a strong bursty 1 minute cooldown in doom winds. Furthermore, we have Storm's Wrath and Storm Blast. Storm's Wrath increases the chance for mastery enhanced elements to trigger wind fury and stormbringer by 100%. And Storm Blast, Stormbringer now also causes your next storm strike to deal 25% additional damage as nature damage, meaning it will now scale off our mastery, and assuming I've understood it correctly, this allows it to proc Stormbringer a lot more frequently due to the nature damage component in the Storm's Wrath talent, which increases mastery enhanced elements to trigger Wind Fury and Stormbringer, which just so happens to also double dip with all the earlier Wind Fury talents. Now you can also spec into a lot of Lava Lash supporting talents like Molten Assault, Fire Nova, Hot Hand, Primal Lava Actuators, and Lashing Flame. Now Molten Assault 2-point talent reduces Lava Lash cooldown by up to 6 seconds, and Lava Lash spreads Flame Shock to up to 4 nearby enemies. It's great on multiple targets and helps you set up the next talent, which is Fire Nova. Technically not a Lava Lash ability, but it detonates targets with Flame Shock, so goes hand in hand with the Flame Shock spread. But I'll touch more on the Fire Nova in a bit. Following this, there's Hot Hand, which is here to stay. 2-point talent, melee auto attacks with Flame Tongue active have a 5% chance to reduce the cooldown of Lava Lash by 75% and increases its damage done by 100%, which can be further upgraded with the old Lego Primal Lava Actuators, which is now a talent. Each time Flame Shock deals periodic damage, increase the damage of your next Lava Lash by 12%, and its cooldown by 0.5 seconds per proc, and it stacks up. So having Flame Shock on a few targets and getting a Hot Hand proc turns your Lava Lash into an absolute powerhouse, because when you don't get a Hot Hand proc, you're left feeling sad and alone, with nothing but a cold hand to rely on. And to add some more cleave to it all, you can talent into Lashing Flame. Lava Lash now increases damage of Flame Shock on its target by 100% for 20 seconds. So have Flame Shock up on multiple targets, target swap on every Lava Lash, and it adds a lot of cleave value to everything, making them darts tick twice as hard. Now swapping from the Lava Lash side of things, you can also spec into things like Storm Flurry. Storm Strike has a 2% chance to strike the target an additional time for 1000% of normal damage, and this effect can chain off of itself. So you're telling me there's a chance that I'd only need to press Storm Strike once, and then this chain procs until the boss is dead? Yes! 100% likely to happen. Regardless, big smack when it does proc, and we do be getting a lot of Storm Strikes off. Speaking of Storm Strikes and Maelstrom and Crash Lightning, going down the center of the tree opens up a lot of Maelstrom enhancing talents. Get it? Enhancing. Like improved Maelstrom Weapon. 2-point talent. Maelstrom Weapon now increases the damage or healing of spells it affects by up to 20% per stack. And Raging Maelstrom, it can now stack 5 additional times and an additional 5% increased damage or healing per stack. Now this one is great overall as it gives us a lot more wiggle room in our already extremely crowded rotation, regardless of build. Most of the time we have like 800 buttons to press, and this allows us to not instantly spend Maelstrom as soon as we hit 5 charges. On the flip side, when we do run into downtime, however seldom that is, we can just spend it on 5 stacks, so gives us a better flow in our rotation. Furthermore, we can go overflowing Maelstrom, allowing us to actually spend 10 Maelstrom on a spell rather than 5, which means our spells just slap that much harder, and combined with, say, Primordial Wave, a 10-stack Lightning Bolt on 6 targets with 150% damage increase. Following this, you have dear old Crash Lightning, which is now a talent, meaning on pure single target, you can just skip this one and take something else instead. You can also talent into Gathering Storm. Each target hit by Crash Lightning increases the damage of your next Storm Strike by 15%, stacks up to 10 times. Regardless, it's a cheap investment for a decent DPS increase on cleave fights, and you get more damage on whatever prior target you're smacking. We also have 2 interesting talents, Elemental Assault and Legacy of the Frost Witch. Elemental Assault, 2-point talent, Storm Strike damage is increased by 10% up to 20%, and Storm Strike has a 50% up to 100% chance to generate 1 stack of Maelstrom. And Legacy of the Frost Witch, 2-point talent, consuming 10 stacks of Maelstrom weapon will reset the cooldown of Storm Strike and increase your damage with physical abilities by 5%, and the second point bumps this up to 25%. Now, Legacy of the Frost Witch is insane. Getting a Storm Strike reset after 10 Maelstrom feels incredibly nice to play with, especially when you've talented into Overflowing Maelstrom, so you can spend 10 Maelstrom on instants rather than 5. It just fuels the spam train. Hitting Storm Strike, throwing off a 10-stack Chain Lightning into another Storm Strike, and could potentially synergize very well with full upgraded Ascendancy. At the moment, it doesn't seem to be working like that, but if they change it so that Ascendancy's Wind Strikes reset from this as well, you could just spam so much during cooldowns, it'd be insane. Now, the biggest issue with both of these talents are that the real value is really in the first point. For Legacy of the Frost Witch, for example, first point gives you the entire proc, second point gives you 25% more damage to physical abilities when it procs, which is by far less value than the first point you invested in it, so most of the time you'll only put 1 point in it. And the same is true for the Elemental Assault. The big thing there is just being able to generate Maelstrom from your Storm Strike. It doesn't matter if it's 50 or 100%, so the value decreases a lot for the second point. Hopefully that makes sense. It'll translate to most builds just having 1 point in either of them if we do pick them. Other than that, we have talents like Sunder and Elemental Blast, as well as Ice Strike, which works like they always have. Elemental Blast does some crazy damage on single target and can get an additional charge through our class tree if you spec into Lava Burst on it. And Sunder, well, it still slaps on AoE and still has the great added component of incapping targets hit. Not much more to say. If we can fit it into our rotation, it'll probably be picked on AoE and cleave. Ice Strike, you slap the target and increase the damage of your next Frost Shock for some extra single target damage if our globals allow it. This can, however, be further improved with Hailstorm and Swirling Maelstrom. Now, Hailstorm competes with Fire Nova, so it's either or, and Swirling Maelstrom empowers either of them, whichever you choose. So Hailstorm works like it does in Shadowlands. Each stack of Maelstrom consumed increases your next Frost Shock damage by 15% per stack, and targets hit by 1 stacks up to 5. So on AoE, or, well, 5 targets or less, it does extremely well. But like I said, it competes with Fire Nova, which might be better on heavy AoE, or, well, would be if they fix it a bit, depending on how you look at it. Currently, Fire Nova is capped at 6 targets. 6 Flame Shock targets can detonate Fire Nova, but it also only deals damage to 6 targets, which is a bit weird in my opinion. The 6 Fire Nova target cap makes perfect sense, but targets hit by their explosions shouldn't be target capped. Damage reduction for sure, but not target capped, because it makes more sense in my head to have Frost Strike plus Hailstorm for cleave and then Fire Nova build for heavy AoE. But all of this is in the hands of the tuning gods. Now, like I said, these two can be further improved by swirling Maelstrom if you consume at least 2 stacks of Hailstorm when you frost shock, or for each Fire Nova explosion, you get 1 stack of Maelstrom. Now for Fire Nova, this is insane. This feels real good as you can fire off a full stack of Maelstrom, hit Fire Nova, and fire off a new one. It's one of those incredibly fun talents where you really feel a big difference. Fire Nova has a low cooldown, and as long as you have Flame Shock up on a couple of targets, it just generates so much Maelstrom. Now for Hailstorm, on the other hand, it feels a bit more as you only get 1 stack currently, regardless of targets hit, at least while I was testing it. And lastly, we can talent into the only utility talents on the enhancement tree, which is Feral Lunge, more mobility, and if we spec into Sunder, we can also get Ancestral Wolf Affinity or Refreshing Waters, more self-healing with Healing Surge, or to be able to cleanse, interrupt, purge, etc. while in Ghost Wolfy form. I strangely get the feeling that these are more for PvP. Now, as far as our class tree goes, it's also very well rounded. If you compare it to say the Hunter class tree, there's very little here that impacts our DPS or enhancement build at all. It's more of a pick and choose what type of utility and defensives you want/need. There's a few DPS talents like Flurry for those auto attack speed procs, nice to see you again, Nature's Fury for up to 4% Nature's spell crit, Fire and Ice for 3% fire and frost damage, and Lava Burst for potential single target build, which will give you 1 extra charge to Elemental Blast instead if you talent into that in the enhancement tree. And there's Surging Shields, which increases Lightning Shield damage by 100% and Earth Shield's healing by 25%, and Lightning Shield has an additional 50% chance to trigger Maelstrom Weapon when triggered, and improved Lightning Bolt for more LB damage. Now all of these are very easy to get and doesn't offset any other utility builds you might be going for. Now as far as utility goes, you have things that improves Ghost Wolf, removing snares and increased movement speed, or Brimming with Life. While Reincarnation is off cooldown, your max HP is increased by 8%, and while you're at full health, Ank's cooldown cools down 75% faster, giving us more survive as well as more frequent uses of our #1 defensive, Ank, or Nature's Guardian for a pseudo cheat death, or Gust of Wind or Spirit Walk for even more mobility, Earth Elemental if we want that as a backup plan when shit hits the fan. It now also gives you our Shadowland Conduit baseline, so 15% increased max health, while Earth Elemental is up, which is a nice added touch if we ever need more defensives. Or my personal favorite, Thunderstorm with Thunder Shock talent, which reduces Thunderstorm's cooldown by 5 seconds, but enemies hit by Thunderstorm gets knocked up into the air, rather than all over the place. So you can now AoE interrupt or stop with it, stop a large group of mobs from doing anything for a bit. Only downside of this is you can't mess up pulse anymore by flinging the mobs all over the map. However, you can talent into Lightning Lasso for single target stuns instead of knock up effect on Thunderstorm, so you'll still be able to ruin pulse if you really wanna. And Ancestral Guidance is back. For the next 10 seconds, 25% of your damage and healing is converted to healing on up to 3 nearby injured party or raid members. This is just awesome, especially on AoE where you can do some mad numbers, at least if tuning stays somewhat intact. Regardless, it's a very welcome talent. Now on the totem side of life, you have things like Windrush, Tremor Totem, Incap Totem, and its upgrade Static Charge or Guardian's Cudgel. Static Charge reduces its cooldown by up to 3 seconds for each enemy stunned, max 25 seconds. And Guardian's Cudgel, when Cap Totem fades or is destroyed, another Cap Totem is automatically dropped in the same place, for even more stopping power on AoE. And Healing Stream Totem, which can be improved with Swirling Currents. Your next 3 healing surges heals more after you've popped a healing stream, giving us access to more bursty off healing if ever needed. Poison Cleansing Totem and Tranquil Air or Stone Skin Totem. Tranquil Air reduces cast pushback and duration of interrupt effects by 50%, and Stonewall 10% physical damage taken reduction. And there's talents to improve totems or totem cooldown via Call of the Elements, which can reset cooldown on your most recently used totem with a base cooldown shorter than 3 minutes, which then can be further improved by either 60-second cooldown reduction on Call of the Elements or so that it affects 2 totems instead. And to tie it all in, you can also get totemic projection, so you can relocate all your totems if you need to run. Now, one thing to note with all of these lovely totems are they're all optional. You can spec into or around them as you see fit, because the whole deal with them is when you need them, they're usually insanely good, but when you don't, well, they're just dead weight. On a fight without fears, charm, or sleep, you'll be hard pressed to find value in specking into Tremor Totem. And more often than not, even if we spec into a few different totems, you won't press them constantly, as again, we're pretty global starved a lot of the time. Of course, if there's a fear incoming, we'd press Tremor, but we might not constantly juggle like Healing Stream and Stone Skin Totem due to aforementioned GCD bloat. All in all, I am extremely pleased with the current state of enhancement on the beta. I went in completely blind and started testing various builds, and I quickly fell head over heels. The enhancement tree itself is amazing. There's a lot of different builds you can make around different abilities, or mix and match around for pseudo cleave single targets builds, for pseudo cleave single target builds, more burst, more sustained damage, and most of the talents we have are very impactful. There's very few talents that are just increase X or Y ability damage by X%. So there's never a moment where you go, ah crap, I gotta take this to get that. It's just all awesome and supports, synergizes extremely well all across the board. And tying it in with the Shaman class tree, which like I said is pretty much 90% utility or defensives for different things, means you can build your enhancement however you want and then just pick and choose your utility and defensives, which is just so good in my opinion. Like I said, it allows us to skip a lot of talents for when they're not needed. What more do you want? Now at the end of the day, we'll most likely have a few cookie cutter builds that'll work for most content, but the fact that we can so easily swap around a few talents and change how our entire build works is so much fun, allowing us to build around content or encounter in a way that not only changes how well we perform in those settings, but potentially our entire rotation as well, which is great. I just hope they really nail the tuning on this, because sadly, regardless of how fun something is, that doesn't always translate to how good it is, but currently it is really good. Now I just need to convince my guild that I should go enhancement in Dragonflight. Although there's more classes to test, but dear lord, I really like this Enhancement Shaman. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the new revamped talent trees for Enhancement Shaman. Let me know in the comments what you'd like showcased next. Otherwise, I'm just gonna do Fury Warrior. And let me know what you think of the new talent tree. Anything you're hyped over or anything you dislike, let me know. Don't forget the usual stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It really helps me out. I stream progression and testing on Twitch, Thursdays and Sundays, or whenever there's testing available. Make sure to check out my Patreon if you want to help support me, my work, and my goal of upgrading my computer before Dragonflight. Make sure to check out the Liquid Women in Warcraft Discord for a supportive and safe Warcraft community. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.